Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? Welcome back to Tenpines Bluff. So we're going to work on a little idea I had the other day at work, which is this place is a fortification defending the Northern Commonwealth. I figured from time to time they'll pick up the occasional prisoner, perhaps occasionally need to confine a member of the Minutemen who might be misbehaving. So I thought we'd build a sort of brig. So I wanted to do something a little bit different, so I thought we'd use these cages, which are, I think, originally from Nuka World. I think from Safari Adventure. So I thought it'd make a good frame and basis to build off, rather than just starting from scratch and using the wood and stuff. So we're going over by the command centre here. Now, it's a bit of an awkward place to work with, the ground's a bit uneven, and I wanted it close but not too close. So a bit of balance to find here. Unusually with something with a concrete bottom, largely I think because it's a modded item. This won't sink in on its own accord, so concrete pillar it is. A little bit too far away there, want a little bit more, want it tucks a bit more in the corner. So we'll adjust, and there we go. So we've got a selection of jail cells available. Gone for the smallest ones because can't quite fit the larger ones in. So we're going to line these up with the corners, make sure it's situated. Clipping it in a little bit there. It will be moved ever so slightly in a moment, but it makes the thing look a little tidier and like they actually belong where they are. So we'll get this nice and lined up. We're actually going to have to adjust it in a little bit, as we'll see. One of the cool things about this though, if you position it just right, you see that seam between the two pieces there basically disappears, which is quite cool. Makes it look like a single item, which I quite like. It'll just take a little patience to get that to work. So as I came to do this third one, I noticed that I hadn't quite got the positioning right, so once we have this lined up, it's on a bit of an angle there, and then nudge these ones on the left over a little bit, make everything sit neat and tidy. A few micro adjustments. And there we have it. One thing that was slightly awkward with the build mode on, it's kind of hard to spot where one thing ends and the next begins because the illumination on the highlight, rather, I think that's the word I'm looking for, makes it a little difficult to see the edges sometimes, so it just dropped out there. These jail doors are USO added as well. I've got the swing version here, but they also have sliding versions. Doesn't make too much sense with these, so. No rug glitching needed for these though, which is a bonus. Just drop straight in and then repositioned, lined up. They do look a little bit like they're not connected properly, but the best way to work around that I've found is to make it look like the lock is in the right place. And then we'll just assume the hinges are on the top and bottom rather than on the side. So with the roof, I went with the metal roofs for a change. Got like a more secure look, partly just to do something a little different. It's actually a retextured one. But in hindsight it might have been the wrong call. Using the flat metal roofs from the wood tab might have been better when it came to putting stuff on top. Because I had a bit of an issue with the objects recognising the top of this roof as a plateable surface, so that may or may not have worked better if I'd used the wooden ones, but hard to say as I didn't actually do it. So 2 pillars to get the height there, just line it up. It doesn't quite match the size, it's a slightly odd size this cage, but by the time we've decorated you won't be able to tell anyway, so that's the main thing. And there we go. Yeah, I can barely tell as it is. Great. So, using the warehouse pieces to shore up the sides here, so they're a better fit for the height. The regular size pieces are just a little bit too small for it. So, group select again. I've got these snapped together, and it's apparently easier to sink the pillar in on the inside and work from that position rather than the outside, partly because we're so close to the wall there. In hindsight it might have been easier to put the jail cells in after I'd done this, but nevertheless we managed. So we're just making sure that it's not sticking too far through and it lines up with the edge of the fence there. And there we go. Nice and snug. That's what we want. So same process over again on this side. So we'll stand outside this time. A little bit of clipping going to be visible at the bottom, which actually I kind of like the look of with that bit of metal bending outwards on the left there, but it actually wound up being a bad decision in hindsight, because when I came to decorate it, it started to get in the way of the sandbags I'm going to put down there. Which actually I think I'll probably pull out later and do something different, because I wasn't overly happy with the aesthetic. So I've just taken that little section of wall off and we'll snap another one on, because I wanted a little bit of natural light in here, which is... it hasn't got a great deal from this, but it's a little bit better. And obviously I didn't want the openings, gaps in the wall there to be over the part where the cell was, over the area in front. So, the rest of the side's filled in. We're going to shore up the area around the door. We need it. The gap above it needs filling in, which unfortunately we don't have anything the right size to just go straight in there. The right shape perhaps might be more appropriate. So we can use a couple of these planks from Custom Vanilla Assets, one of the few pieces actually still used from that mod. And just group select those one on top of the other. Much the same technique as I did with the Metro build a while back. Set them one on top of the other. It's a nice little board. We can pick and choose the size this way. And then we'll just group select it into place. There we go. Apologies for the rattling of the door there. One settler I've picked up that's wandering around has got a thing for going in and out of that building, which is both a good thing and a bad thing, I suppose. It means the pathing's okay in there, but unfortunately that door keeps rattling. She kept getting in the way. So these boards are from Toys Out of the Pram's supports mod. It's also got a few junk wall pieces in it. So we're just going to drop that first one in with no help at all. That went in no problem. This one, because we need to overlap it a bit, I have to use group select, but it does the job quite neatly. So the junk wall collection, amongst other things, adds a few different just general wall pieces and these awning type things, I suppose, as well. Little sort of sloped roofs. It's really good for adding a little bit more detail, a little bit of breaking up the square shape of it a little bit. They're not quite as wide as I would like them to be, or possibly the cage is a little wider than I would like it to be, one or the other. So we'll centre them rather than lining them up with the outside edge. Again, because we're a little bit high up in the air, double height on the pillars. We've got the staircase there because it makes things a lot easier to see, a lot easier to line up when you're looking at them from a slightly elevated position. You can also see the bottom of the pillar, so it will actually play ball when you want to sink it in that way as well. Just line those up. There we have it. So, got 4 shack floors here that we're just going to snap together and then group select in as a kind of balcony. Needed some way to get in and out of this building, as the floor's really quite high there. Not sure if it's immediately apparent on the video here, but it's quite a jump up there. So, we'll put a little kind of balcony in here. And we'll put the entrance towards the left-hand edge here rather than just going straight on. Then we don't block off the entrance to the command post there. And a slightly different look to the thing as well that way. Alright, nice and simple. Get a few posts in to prop the thing up with. So again, it's from Toys Out of the Prams mod. Much more substantial than the wire fence posts I've been using in the past, which I quite like. Useful thing to bear in mind, make sure you, well, obviously make sure the pillar's high enough that you can sink the post low enough down. But also here the pillar's on a bit of an angle to the post that we're trying to position. So we're having slight collision issues, so we'll straighten that up, make sure we've got as much room between the two objects as we can. And there we go, nice and easy. Same thing again in the middle, and will be again on the end, but we don't need to see it that many times. So the other useful trick here is to line it up while it's sticking through the floor, so you actually see what you're doing with it. Obviously it'll go red while you're doing that, but that actually makes it a bit easier to see, funnily enough. So we stop throwing the pillar all over the place. There we go. Nudge it in a tiny little bit. Just below, there we go. So thought I'd use the chain link and some plywood boards here just to make slightly different railings for this. I would have liked to have one of those thicker poles for the centre, which we have got, but unfortunately it's a bit of a pain to place in the first place, let alone trying to sink in, so we'll have to make do without. I'll get that lined up, make sure it's sitting not just about as high as it can be. There we go. And repeat over on this side. That's lined up. Just hanging around right in the way there again. So I did have a little bit of an issue trying to position these boards in. You can see they're clipping through a bit there. Tried again, it was a little awkward to judge the positioning on it. Yeah, partly because of the highlight, partly just because they're very thin pieces. As are the chain link fences, of course. So the easiest way to do it is just to turn around the side a little bit and look along the length of both the chain link and the boards. You'll see in just a moment. Yeah, there you go. Same problem again. So we'll pull it out a little bit. Do it side on like this. You can see the gaps closing up, but it's not actually clipping through that way. There we go. The same procedure again over on this side. Would have been a bit easier in this instance if I wasn't standing on the patio outside the command centre there. So, the height is actually a disadvantage here. Starting to come together. So we're going to dress up this edge, and for now we're using sandbags for that, but I think I'm actually going to come back and do something a little different, because I'm not overly happy with the aesthetic on this. It works fine, and it looks neat enough, but it's something about it just doesn't work for me, so I think I'll probably come back and change that at some point. For now, it's just group selecting the upper layer in here, because I'm not quite tall enough to do the job on their own. Those lined up, there we go. And then fill in the bottom half using the rug glitch. One good thing about doing this is there's a lot of different angles on the sandbags, and the gaps in each individual sandbag separation means that when you clip them together, the textures don't look too much like they're clipping, they just look like a jumble of sandbags. There we go. Next one in. That lined up. And there's our stack. So going back to posts, beams and supports mod, we don't have a lot of options for angled supports. There's a couple of wooden poles in the wood tab, and these are under the metal one. The wooden ones, unfortunately, don't have the angled or the vertical top ends like these do. Sort of a right angle to the main post. So when you actually put it into place, unless you clip it right into the wall, which this one's not deep enough to do that with, it will end up with just the barest end of the post leaning against it. So this one, we've got a flat surface pressing up against the wall. It actually looks like it's providing a bit more support. There we go. A group select to get that in. Just a little bit closer. There we go. To say it's effective, and it does look alright, but for some reason I'm just not quite happy with this aesthetic, so we'll change it. I think I'll probably use something out of Aslam's junk wall mod, actually, and stack that up beside it instead. It won't look quite so supportive, but it might make the overall look a little better, I think. So, coming towards the last little bit, I want to make the top look a little bit more interesting than just that flat roof. So we need a way up there first. So this is a scaffolding floor piece that I've just dropped a plywood board on there. Putting the board on now, just so we can, because we're using it as a kind of bridge, so this way we'll be able to see whether or not we've got the thing at the right height much more easily. Perspective in this game being somewhat awkward. So, 2 pillars, and you see we've got a guideline for where the top edge of the roof is. So we're too low there, there we go. Put back a little bit so that I can snap the scaffold under it in just a moment. There we go. Much easier to do it that way than to put the scaffolding first. I've got a little bit of floating there, but we'll hide that soon enough. So with this one, I didn't want to just snap it straight onto the edge of the balcony there, although it will do it. Largely because it starts to encroach on the space at the front of this command post here, so I'm going to push it back a little bit and use a plywood board on there, so we get a bit of an angled corner. So not cutting off access quite so much. There we go, got that in place. Snap the stairs in. I'm actually going to change those out in a bit, but I'll head up the top and we'll rug glitch in some sandbags just to tidy off this top edge. And usually I'm actually going to store the rug and let them drop down a little bit, because it doesn't clip through the floor on ceiling rather on the inside, so you can see from here, and it just looks that bit neater and doesn't look like it's floating. So drop it on the rug and then run up there. The other advantage is for some reason when you just position them on their own, they don't recognise the plywood boards or the roof underneath them as being a placeable surface, so this way they'll actually drop in and sit where we want them, as opposed to just not placing at all. So, let's look around the finished product. Reasonably nice and secure, keeping in with the style of the rest of the place. Open up the door. A guard post here that's actually from one of the DLC, the Vault-Tec DLC, but it fits with it being a desk. It sort of suits the role a bit better. Fairly Spartan decor in here. We've got switches there to turn the lights off that are pointed at the cells, so that the prisoners actually can get some sleep. A little bit of storage for any personal belongings they might take off any prisoners. We'll wander around and take a look upstairs. I've gone for the broader staircase because we had a little bit of clipping with the railings on the other stairs, and then narrow stairs just didn't look very neat and tidy to me, so there we go. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to put up here yet, if anything. Possibly some form of guard post, but I'm not really sure. Unfortunately we've got the ceiling fan reflecting its light through the floor there, but a universal problem when you use those, but they are nice lights, so I do like to use them. Okay, you can see the cut-off corner a little bit there. And there we have our little Brig. So I do hope you enjoyed that one. If you did, you know what to do by now. And if you liked the video and would like to support the channel a little bit more, then do consider becoming a sponsor over on YouTube Gaming. You'll find all the information down in the description. For now, thanks so very much, and I will be speaking to you all very, very soon.